When you're working with Photoshop, a lot of what you're going to be doing is choosing the right tool for the right project. We're going to explore the tools that are in Photoshop and some of the options that you can use to make those tools do different things. Here we go. Well, your tools bar showing up over here on the left-hand side has several different types of tools, and probably the most important is going to be this move tool, and it's going to let you move objects around, or actually I should say moving layers around. And then you have below that different types of selection options, for example the rectangular marquee, which allows you to make selections of different pixel areas or image areas. Below that you've got several tools, painting tools that allow you to make adjustments and toning options. An interesting thing here too is when I use a painting tool, I'm going to be painting inside of a selected area, so that selection acts as a boundary. If nothing's selected, I'm going to do a Control D here to deselect everything. Then when I use a tool, such as the paintbrush, it actually can go anywhere I want. Well, when you're working on these different tools, you have some options for each tool. And as I click on a tool, like the paintbrush here, I can see across my options bar, and the options bar has actually been streamlined a little bit from previous versions, so it's got a nice clean interface, and I can choose things for the paintbrush, for example, what size of brush I want. I've got some different blending modes that I could use, the opacity, etc. If you have a stylus pen connected to your computer, you could also adjust things like the pressure. Another thing that's interesting about these different options is that we have what are called scrubby features. That's just fun to say. The scrubby slider, for example, opacity, instead of putting in a number and sliding it or so, when I hover right below it, it gives an arrow. It kind of looks like a finger with a string, and I can actually scrub this way. And I'm just dragging my mouse left and right. Do the same thing here with flow. And notice if I switch to different tools, for example, here is the selection tool, I get that scrubby feature. So here's some different options in there of how you can shift things. Incidentally, if you hold down the shift key when you're using scrubby, it's going to actually move at a higher rate. So here's without the shift. Now I'm going to use the shift, and it just jumps. If you use the alt key, let me make sure I'm using my scrub right. I'm using my scrubbing and I add the alt while I do that. It actually is going to slow it down a little bit, making it move at smaller increments. So that's a little tip and trick with the alt and the shift key. Now as I'm making these changes in here, Photoshop's actually remembering all the settings that I'm making to these tools. And the very first icon is actually a picture of the tool that you have, but if you right click on it, it gives you options to reset the tool or even reset all tools. Let's go ahead and click on reset all tools, and it's going to reset them back to the defaults. Click on OK here, give it a moment. So now it goes back to the feather of 0, and if I go back to the paintbrush, it actually reset the options for that paintbrush too, because it's resetting all the tools. All right, let's go back and make another change. So as I'm working on different tools, I also have some options that are available with the context menu. Sometimes people call those the right-click menus. So I make a quick selection just by clicking and dragging down. And if I right-click, I'm getting some options that are related to this particular tool, depending on where I might right-click. I could even deselect it here. And if I go to the Move tool and I right-click, I'm getting nothing, depending on what's selected. And partly it's because of the layer that I'm on as the background layer. Let's go here to the paintbrush, and I can right-click. And so again, you're getting options based on what tool you have, what might be selected, what layer you are in, to get more choices of working with that tool. You also have options with the panels themselves. So for example, here's my Layers panel, one of my favorite panels in Photoshop. And over to the side, I've got this icon. It looks like a little bit like a drop-down menu, and I can click and hold that, and I'm going to get a panel menu. Sometimes I call that the flyout menu, and it gives me different options, even a panel options, but all of these are really different options I can use with the panel. And these are specific to the Layers panel. If I switch to, for example, the Colors panel, I also have a flyout menu, and I'm getting options for the actual Colors panel. So again, each tool is going to give you lots of choices. Let's explore a few more things here. Another thing about your toolbars is you'll notice that the tools often have a small triangle in the bottom right-hand corner. And whenever you see a triangle, it means click it. It means that there's more options. And so if I click and hold that, now I let go of my mouse. I just have to click and hold it, turn it on. But then you can let go of your mouse and it stays open. But you're going to see there's different types of marquees. In addition to the rectangular marquee, there's also the elliptical marquee. And I click and hold, and I can switch back to the rectangular. And you can see the same thing with the lasso tools and even with the paintbrush. You're going to notice that different tools show up based on that triangle. Now, you can also access your tools with the keyboard shortcut. So you can see here it has the letter B, whereas the marquee has an M for marquee. That makes sense. And then this move tool has the letter V, and I think, oh, V because it's move or because it's a very important tool. Maybe that'll help you remember it. But what that means is you can tap the letter M, or you can tap the letter B, or you can tap the letter V, and you're seeing how these tools are becoming active. So here's the letter B, and notice it opens up the paintbrush, and the M gives you the marquee. Incidentally, if you use the Shift and the M, it'll cycle through those different tools that were in the triangle. I'll try that again with the brush. So you can see there's some different brushes in here. So let's try the Shift and the B, and you can see how they're cycling through. And actually, a lot of these keyboard shortcuts are the same in other Adobe Creative Suite products. So if you use products like Illustrator or InDesign or Dreamweaver, you might notice some of the similarities in those different keyboard shortcuts. So that gives you a good idea of the different types of tools and the fact that you're always going to be changing the tool that you want to use in Photoshop, but you can customize the options and even reset the options as you start working with the product.